What's up, marketing maniacs, and welcome back to another episode of From Startup to Wunderbrand, your ultimate BFF in the wide world of digital marketing. Join me, your host, Nicholas Kuhner, spilling the beans on the juiciest trends and hottest tips to up your marketing game. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of From Startup to Wunderbrand with your host, Nicholas Kuhner. We've got Dr. D. Anthony Miles with us. Dr. Miles, wonderful to have you on the call today.
Thank you, Nicholas, for having me. I've been looking forward to this all week.
So we're going to be talking about a fantastic book by Dr. Miles, which is called How to Get Away with Murder in Marketing, Forensic Marketing. This is something a lot of folks are very interested in because there's been this big move towards analytics in marketing. Now that we've got cookies, we've got all sorts of interesting analytics tools and techniques, this whole issue of being able to get down to the nuts and bolts of what is actually working in your marketing is becoming more and more important. So, Dr. Miles, can you perhaps talk us through a little bit of the title of the book and then some of the important chapters that we can discuss?
Sure. I was inspired by the show, How to Get Away with Murder, and I really like the show. And then the reason, the impetus for me developing the book is that there are two other fields in business that are very common, and that's forensic economics and forensic accounting. And I was fascinated that there has not been a really comprehensive book on forensic marketing. So when I did my investigation, doing my research, there was actually one book that was done on forensic marketing, but it was more of it stayed on the side of communications. Well, marketing has grown since that book has come out. And my book is more of an extension of the prior book. I look at analytics. I look at branding. I look at competition. I look at management. I look at the brand analytics. Also look at distribution. So when I came out with my book, I thought my book was a little bit more comprehensive, and I identified 5 key areas of marketing forensics and marketing. And that's how I came up with the book, to be honest with you.
Well, I've actually watched How to Get Away with Murder. So I think it's the same producers who did Grey's Anatomy. So it's a fantastic series and some fantastic actors. Now, you touched on a couple of points there that I like. So there's the brand analytics, and I'm not sure whether you get into any brand valuation sort of ideas in this book, because obviously what businesses are trying to do is always increase their brand value, because that's, the point of marketing brands. So this would be something that folks at Brand Union, all of these other big brand agencies should actually be reading as a primer for folks who are starting in those businesses, right?
Absolutely. I do get into that in the branding phase of the book. There are 5 key areas of the book. And I do get into the branding valuation. I talk about value proposition. I talk about the analytics of value proposition. And that was probably one of the more important parts of the book, is to talk about brand evaluation. How does your brand, how do consumers respond to your brand?
And when it comes to brand valuation or building your brand, they're actually quite standard steps that you can follow. I think folks who start out in branding think you've just got to create a nice logo, get your proposition right, and then everything works. But with the forensic marketing sort of process that you outline, there's sort of concrete steps that you can take to increase your brand value or to increase the value in your marketing. Isn't that right?
That's absolutely correct, Nicholas. One of the things that I also wanted to do when I wrote my book was, there are people who think they know marketing, who think because they can build a nice logo. Marketing has become so complex in the last 20 or 30 years. Marketing isn't one thing. Marketing has become like the field of law. You say you're in marketing, well, what aspect of marketing? Are you in marketing research? Are you in brand development? Are you in distribution? So if somebody says they're marketing and they think because they build a nice logo, that does not mean you're in marketing. You're in one aspect of marketing. And you can do all those nice things, but if it's not backed up with data and backed up with analytics, marketing is right side or left side. Right side is the artsy things. I mean, I'm not diminishing the importance of it, but creative things. On the left side of marketing is your statistics, your analytics, the things that try to balance things out of marketing. So if somebody says that a field of marketing, with marketing, it's a data-driven discipline. And you can't say because you build a nice ad or you build a nice logo that you're good at marketing. That would be just a disservice to yourself and disservice to the people that do business with you.
You bring up the point of data analytics again, and I think a lot of marketers, as you pointed out, probably on the right side, which is the creative side,
Yes.
and expect that big creative, big ideas, making sure that the logo is in the right spot is what's going to build their brand. I've worked a lot in performance analytics and enterprise performance analytics with companies around the world, and there is more and more integration of data coming from social media, website, sales,
Yes.
production, all of these aspects into these sort of big data lakes. And they're now able to see, okay, if I spend 1 cent, $1 here, I'm going to get X, Y, Z out. And it's almost making traditional marketers obsolete if they don't understand how to use data analytics. How do you think if somebody is going to get into proper marketing now and be successful, what kind of skills does that person need?
When I was developing the book, I was also had the idea of developing the certification for that. And anybody I would say that has maybe a somewhat of a business background, one of the things that they would have to have is, some research skills, understand the practice of marketing, understand what marketing is. And if you can start there, you can actually build some skills in forensic marketing. Because in the book, I take the 5 core areas of marketing and I break them down and I make them digestible. Does that make sense to you, Nicholas? What I try to do is, I didn't write the book to be above everybody's head. I wrote the book for professionals, professors, people that work in the field, people that work in business, consultants. And if you understand the basics of marketing, the 5 P's of marketing or whatever, you could pretty much pick up anything that you need from the book and it'll make sense to you. And also I put in the aspects of forensic investigation, how to investigate a company that's having trouble with their marketing. Because based on forensic marketing is trying to find the things that are separating them from being successful from their competitors. Why is your market share in a dumper? Why is your product line is not being competitive in the marketplace? So when I show them the investigation steps and techniques, that would help them understand why people have failed in their product launches and their product marketing. It gives them the basics of forensic investigation.
So we use a term at a couple of advertising agencies I worked at of a post-mortem of campaigns. So we do a post-mortem of a campaign. It's probably not the nicest phrase, but it gives an idea of what needs to be done. Now, I don't think you started out in marketing. And I've often found that some of the best marketers are folks who haven't, like me, studied marketing and advertising. I studied marketing and advertising, but the smartest marketers I've come across have been philosophers, engineers, folks who've had to force themselves to learn marketing from outside of the traditional process, which we've all learned at universities. Maybe give me a little background. I'm going to quickly talk about your bio here. So you're
Sure.
not just an author, but you're a serial entrepreneur, award-winning
Yes.
researcher, award-winning professor, statistician, legal expert business expert, best-selling authors, and you are a startup marketing expert. And then obviously we mentioned a bit of forensic marketing expertise here. And you've got your own podcast, which we'll touch on later. So
Yes.
when did marketing become something that stood out for you in your career?
Oh, Nicholas, that's a good question. My dad made me go to college. I don't want to go to college initially. I worked in retail and I talk about earning my stripes. When I worked in retail, I didn't understand certain things. And it wasn't until I started taking marketing classes. And again, you're right. I came from another field. I actually hated finance. And I ended up spending 10 years in the financial services industries. Okay. I was a loan officer and I had to read credit reports and I had to do all those type of things. And I would have to say that probably strengthened my marketing skills. But when I was in retail, I didn't understand certain things like why do you have a guy dressed up in a Twinkie outfit coming into the grocery store selling Twinkies and walking around the store on Saturday? I thought it was dumb. And then what I didn't realize that was the promotional aspect of marketing.
I'm just going to say you're giving away your age now because probably some of the listeners have never heard of Twinkies.
Yeah, well, sorry about that. Twinkies,
Even though they last forever and they're
right?
probably some stuck in a cupboard somewhere, which are still edible.
We had people that would come in the store and do promotions for products. And I thought it was cool, but I didn't understand why they would do that. And then we were dealing with pricing changes. Like, why one week you would have something on sale and promote it, and then the next week it's not on sale. And I didn't understand the logic of that. And then the marketing also is seasonal. So there's a lot of things that I saw when I was working in retail that I didn't connect the dots as far as why you did that in marketing. And then I did understand the competition part because the grocery store that I worked had a competitor that moved from New York or, yeah, from a big city and tried to compete with them. And they were lowering their prices. That's the first thing they did. They were doing other things like undercutting the other retailers, and some retailers couldn't hang and they went out of business. And then the retailer that came in from New York finally went out of business. I kept saying, I didn't connect the dots. And when I went into the financial services industry, then I started understanding the theory of pricing, y'all, shelf space. Why do you put your major brands on the shelf and then you have your generic brands or your no-name brands and their pricing is about 10, 15 cents difference. And then you find out later that they all go to the same manufacturer, but they have trademark patents on the specs of their products that you can't copy. Like people copy Coca-Cola. Well, Coca-Cola has a trademark patent on their formula for their soda, and a lot of people have imitated it, but it doesn't necessarily taste just like Coca-Cola. So you talk about working in retail when I was young, I didn't connect the dots. And as I got it, after I was in the financial services industry, I actually made a full circle and I actually went back to school and picked up an MBA. And I felt like I relearned things that I had forgotten about in marketing. And then I went to school, actually went and picked up my PhD. And I began to connect the dots between the world of marketing, why you have economic factors, why you have political factors, why do you have people that have an increasingly higher market share. And then I also learned about when new entrants come into the market, the paradigm changes. And I was just blessed to have gotten a retail background. Now I can connect the dots. I worked in retail for about 13 years. And again, Nicholas, I probably got the best education working in a retail store because I thought of these things face first and hands on. How do you do in-store promotions, pricing, shelf spacing, distribution, promotions of the brand, why certain brands get pushed and other brands don't. And 13 years of experience of doing that gave me way more than my college education did. The college education helped me connect the dots. And that's how I learned my craft.
So, as you said, there's no such thing as a bad experience. I'm sure working in
Yes.
retail wasn't your dream, but as you look back on it now, it was a fantastic education. And there's
Yes.
nothing better than being on the shop floor and seeing or what people are opening their wallets for. And I worked at markets with my mother and grandmother since I was 8 years old. And
Uh-huh.
I had this great love of being able to sell to people and, managing to convince them to buy a product as they were walking past or, understanding, oh, this might
Oh,
work
yes.
nicely for you. And
Yes.
now as a marketer and, in leadership and so on, those basic skills of talking to people, understanding what motivates people is something I wouldn't have learned if I hadn't had those very, 4 o'clock in the morning, setting up the stall and knocking down
Yep.
at 6 o'clock.
Experienced it. We have very similar backgrounds. I remember having to be at work at 4 o'clock in the morning. And you know how you have Thanksgiving and Christmas? You have to prepare for that. They have their sales projections. And I've actually had to do some in-store promotions. We had to give out samples when we were pushing a product and talking to people. and meeting people. And you really, really learn. And I love what you said. You really learn interacting with people because you actually hear what people say about a product to your face. They don't. Now, remember, this is before the internet got really big as it has. People told you exactly what they thought about a product. Remember, the code, my marketing professor, Dr. William Milcher, used to always say this: you can't be all things to all people. Some people are going to like your product, some people are not. So you want to take it like, okay, I want to reach the people that are going to be interested in my product. And you learn how to take rejection when you give people samples. No, I don't want any. No, I don't want to buy the product. And you learn about salesmanship. That's what you don't learn in a book. You don't learn in a marketing class. Good meeting people. People have a fear of interacting with people, and you really learn that in the retail environment. You really learn that on the sales floor. You cannot replicate that kind of experience. I learned what motivates people being on a sales floor. What do people like? Being able to smile, being able to be, try to make people feel comfortable when you approach them. You don't learn that in school. You really don't. School gives you the rudiments of something, but you don't learn the other little essential skills.
And that it's even more difficult when you're having to do that in a Twinkies costume.
Right? I was about to dress up. I had to wear a cap over my head because we were giving samples of this new fruit that we were selling in the store. And I didn't like it. I'm not gonna lie to you. It was really out of my comfort zone, but I learned a lot. And again, dressing up in a costume, talking to people, how to approach kids, how not to be threatening, you really learn.
Your point about you can't convince people who don't want to be convinced, or there are people who are going to love your product and are going to hate your product, regardless of what you do. And there's a small percentage of people that you can swing to your side. And that brings me to American politics or some statistical work that you're doing now.
Yes.
And an old chestnut I always bring up is, the reason Hillary Clinton lost is that she tried to be loved by everyone and get everyone's vote. And at the end of the day, Donald Trump just focused on his core market and realized he's not getting those other guys. But he just needed to convince that 0.5% to vote for him. He didn't need 90% of the vote. He didn't need everyone to love him. And that's the mistake that I believe partly that Hillary Clinton made, is that she tried to be lovable to everyone. And when you're lovable to everyone, you're doing something wrong.
If everybody likes you, you have a problem.
Exactly.
But, yes.
Now we are going into the exciting season now of the American presidential elections in the States. So I've canceled Netflix, I've canceled Disney, I've canceled all of my streaming services because I'm just watching Fox and MSNBC to get my balanced news. Do you see similarities could you use forensic marketing in political marketing or advertising in a similar way as you would in a traditional marketing circumstance?
Oh, absolutely. There are a lot of similarities are glaring, especially, you compare a politician to a product. One of the things that we uncovered with our research, you're going to find this fascinating. The majority of it follows a lot of political marketing and actually traditional marketing. We found that people do not care about the credibility of the candidate. People care about visual attributes of the candidate. And we were surprised at our results. We've been collecting data for about 5 years. We actually, thank you for bringing up Hillary Clinton. We started with the 2020 election, and we were actually collecting data before that, because I believe the 2020 election, he was running against Joe Biden, Trump. We were collecting data before the last election in 2020, right after the aftermath of the Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump election, and how, he won. And what we found out, Nicholas, and you're going to find this surprising. What we found out in the results of our study was people vote for candidates based on visual attributes. People were concerned about how a candidate looks, if a candidate wore glasses, if a candidate had facial hair, if a candidate was short, if a candidate was tall, if a candidate was overweight. if a candidate was a male or a female, because gender was a visual attribute. And lastly was the most surprising was in most of the majority of our sample, we had people fill out our survey. The majority of our sample tended to be liberal, then moderate. They cared about the candidate's sexual orientation. And this went across the board of conservative, moderate, agnostic. And I was shocked. And we found 15 visual attributes that people were worried about when they voted for president. The second group of our variables were credibility. Visual was first, credibility was second, like if they had morals, if they come from a good family, if they are honest in their dealings with people. That was secondary to visual characteristics. And that surprised us in the results. So when you see people vote for a candidate, let's take Joe Biden and Donald Trump in American politics. People would vote for Donald Trump because he's an attractive guy. He comes across as very articulate. What does Joe Biden look like to you? He looks tired. He looks sleepy. He looks lethargic. He doesn't look energetic. And that's why Donald Trump is leading him in the polls, because Donald Trump has all the positive characteristics of visual attributes that Joe Biden doesn't have.
So it's basically going back to retail packaging.
Exactly. And packaging, that's what it is. If you don't look good to people, it's because remember, political marketing and traditional marketing align perfectly. If you don't look good to the voters, they will not vote for you. Then go back to Hillary Clinton. Remember when Hillary Clinton had some kind of health issue and she failed or something? Donald Trump actually capitalized on that. What does that say to people when they saw that? Voters. From a visual attributes aspect, they said that means she's not healthy. Not healthy means she can't run the country, so we're going to vote for Donald Trump. And that's how she lost. He has the right look. He has the right height. He's not overweight. He has the right persona. And those are the things that resonate with people when they vote. And it's really, I was more disappointed in our results than anything. And I'm not saying that, there's no validity to that. Being in politics is a popularity contest. It's not about who's the smartest candidate. It's not who's the most knowledgeable candidate. It's not who's the most credible. It's about how people look. You will never see a guy get voted, not like the 1800s, because we talked about this. I talked about this with Dr. Valentine. When was the last guy that won the presidency that had facial hair? Teddy Roosevelt. Teddy Roosevelt wore glasses. He had a mustache. That was about the 1920s. A presidential candidate, consulting political candidate, run for office, I would say get contacts, lose the glasses. I would say lose the mustache. People like clean-cut candidates because it's something about a clean-cut candidate that makes people feel at ease. Now, there's a candidate running named Dr. Cornel West. He's a Princeton professor. I don't know if he's serious or he's just throwing his name in the hat. All of his visual characteristics are wrong for running for political office. He has a goatee.
Glasses and a mustache. Well, he's got a goatee, I think. Yeah.
And a big afro. He looked anti-presidential.
It's going to be a tough one.
Exactly. Now, you remember Elizabeth Warren? She had ran for office. She wore glasses. Okay, she couldn't get past the Democratic primary. Some of the other candidates. Some of them kind of faked. Some of them, saying anything to get elected. But those visual characteristics are more important to people than when we vote for a candidate, we really don't look at the things that we should be looking at. How somebody looks is 90% of how we vote for a candidate. And that's really unfortunate in our voting system in our country.
Well, I suppose the same thing is true of buying a Porsche or a Lamborghini or, these expensive brands. It's all about perception, the positioning versus substance. I mean, a Louis Vuitton bag is basically canvas, and that canvas isn't that expensive, but it's the perception around it. And I suppose with a book about how to get away with murder in marketing, with forensic marketing, would allow you to break down the steps of, how you can build your brand and build your marketing up correctly. Now, you've presented at Stanford and at Harvard
Yes.
and at a variety of other universities.
Yes.
When you go and present to students like this, I take it's in the MBA program or in the sort of the business side, or is it in research, Doctor?
Normally, when there were conferences at the university, I presented at, and not necessarily MBA students. They're more like uh, academics and scholars. And I had an interesting presentation at Stanford. I don't know if you've heard of this. They have a national mathematics competency contest around the country, around the world. And the United States consistently ranks lower than other countries in the field of mathematics. And I presented that at Stanford University. One of the problems that we have is mathematics competency in the United States, and it's getting worse and worse. And most of the engineers at the time I did my study, they're from outside of the country, India, uh, Asian countries, Germany, and the United States ranked the lowest in mathematics. And it was a very, very disturbing wake-up call. One of the things that we found out is that the reason those countries score higher in the mathematics than we do is because our textbooks have too many pages. The average mathematics textbook in the United States is about 300 to 400 pages. When you go to countries that have a stronger math curriculum, their country scores higher than the United States in mathematics because they break aspects of mathematics down in little bitty digestible pieces. And then when the students learn that, then they move to the next level of mathematics. In the United States, we don't do that. Because of that, we have textbook companies that compete with each other. And one of the things that the countries were successful at, how they outperform the United States in mathematics, is because they have a uniform curriculum. And what that means, Nicholas, is if you take your kid out of one school and you move and they transfer to another school, the whole country's mathematics curriculum is uniform. There's no difference. They just go exactly to another school and pick up where they left off. That is not the case in the United States. In the United States, you have different school districts. They have different math books, and all the school districts pick different math books. And there's an economic aspect to it. The textbook companies are trying to make money. They don't care about having a uniform curriculum. And because of that, we have people that teach mathematics differently than other people. There was a big scare in the United States about the decline in mathematics majors. They were trying to recruit people to teach mathematics in K through 12 because we didn't have enough math teachers. So they were getting people from fields like engineering, chemistry to help teach mathematics. They're offering them big money, like retired engineers, retired chemists. And most of them didn't want it, but they're offering them some really, really good money to go in the mathematics field and teach in K through 12 because there was a shortage of mathematics teachers. And it's going to get worse. And the United States is going to have to figure out what they're going to do about that because they call it the mathematics crisis in the United States. It has a lot of implications and other things in the United States that they're going to have to really, really pay attention to.
Well, I suppose it also doesn't help that the Americans' counting system is bushels, gallons, and groats. So,
Yes.
I think if you
We don't use the metric
or
system like we
moose
should.
heads,
Yeah,
no,
you're
how
right.
many football pitches is that? As opposed to, I mean, that
Metrics. Right. And the metric
exactly.
system is actually easier to use than the traditional measurement system that we use, like inches, yards, and feet. The metric system is based on tenths, right? Well, you look at a ruler, they use fractions. And that's confusing to people. It doesn't make sense. But if you use a metric ruler, everything is done by 10, right? 10.1, 10.2. It's easy to measure. Liters, knowledge, all those things. They refuse. They just won't do it. That's a real big problem. And when somebody tells you my finger is 5 inches and a fourth, or 5 inches and an eighth, you're like, okay, what does that mean? And then If we don't do those things like that, we're about, I think, 20, 30 years behind because we don't use the metric system. And I thought it was confusing when I was a kid when they introduced it to us in school. And then I got older, it made sense to me. It's broken down into tenths. So you don't have to do fractions in your head. It's simple. But we're stubborn. We don't want to, anything that we don't want to do, we're not going to do it.
Yeah. Well, that's a new drive on the wrong side of the road. So, I mean, but these are things that can be fixed. Now,
Yes.
I asked this before. As a new marketer, so say you've got students who want to learn marketing, and if you want to set them up for success for the next couple of years, because we've got AI coming in, we've got big data, we've got
Yeah.
all of this great data science stuff. Let's exclude social media and folks who are going in the creative sides. If you want to be a successful online startup, what type of marketing skills should these folks be learning? Should they just work, as in go into work, skip college, work first, and then go and pick up short courses as they go? Because I honestly believe that the education system now, in terms of the folks that we're generating, we need apprenticeships back. We need folks doing actual work first, and then, because the industry is changing so quickly, just learn on the job. Get certifications as this new technology comes out, but have obviously your foundation of this is a customer journey. This is what a funnel is, and then align all of your future learning into that.
Oh, Nicholas, that's a great question. Being a startup and marketing expert, there's a lot of serendipity in your career. And what I would tell, the best way I could ask that question is to say, what would I tell myself if I was in the future? And I'm go back into what is that? Back to the Future, like Michael J. Fox.
Back to the Future.
If I could talk to myself, what advice would I give myself? And like I was a new student like everybody else, I would say, learn your craft of marketing, but get some hands-on apprenticeship experience. Don't be so educated to where your education is also can be a detriment to you, because what's really bad, I love what you said about this. What's really bad now that we have AI is going to make college education, I'm not going to say obsolete, but I would say the emphasis on it won't be as strong because AI can write books. AI can do different things. Will AI replace people? Critical thinking? I don't know. I don't think it can do that. I think it's a tool, but if I were to tell myself, I'm from the future, you're going to get interviewed in forums, I don't want you to worry. I would say, learn your craft, learn to use a bachelor's degree is probably what you need. Get a bachelor's degree and then go out in the field and get your apprenticeship. Work with a marketing firm, work in a retail environment, work in different things to align with your marketing skills, because the saddest thing that's going on in the world now is we have oversupply of educated people. We have people getting doctorates and PhDs in basket weaving, okay, that have no practical application in the workforce. And we have people walking around getting PhDs in the most worthless and mundane things. And then what I don't like about the education, I know that's coming from me having a PhD. I can speak from the other side of it. We're putting people out in the workforce that are overeducated, and their education is absolutely worthless in the workforce. You get an education, and if it's not relevant to the field or industry that you're going into, your education is worthless because it becomes a detriment to you. And the overeducated workforce means that it brings down the value of a college education. Not everybody needs to get an MBA. Not everybody needs to get a PhD. Some people can get by with just a bachelor's. I believe that everybody should at least have a bachelor's. And you don't have to get a graduate degree unless you just want to. But we cannot have people that are so educated that they don't understand the true craft of a field or the true craft of an industry or a market. And because of that, if I were to give myself advice, I would say, learn your craft. Yes, get your education, but learn your craft in your field, because learning your craft in your field is going to help you later. I remember, tell you an interesting story, Nicholas, and this is going to resonate what I just told you. When I got recruited by a company for a job, I worked in the finance industry. And we were the new recruits for the management training program. And we got to meet the recruits from last year. And one of the guys on the panel had an MBA. So I went up to him. I said, hey, I noticed that out of the people that were on the panel, you're the only one having an MBA. And I wanted to know, do you think it's advisable for me to go get my MBA right now? I just graduated. He said, look, young buck, let me tell you something. I would not recommend that you go get an MBA right now. I recommend that you go get some field knowledge, experience. And then after you've been in the field 10 years, then go back and get the MBA. And that's exactly what I did, because I would have I just graduated from school, went and got another MBA, and I didn't know anything more than I did when I got my bachelor's, because I learned something in school, but I didn't learn my craft. I didn't learn things in the field. Experience, you can't replace experience. You can't read 1,000 books and replace experience. And the message that I want to leave with you is there's two types of education. There's a school of knowledge and there's a school of hard knocks. And you should try to acquire both of those. One is not better than the other. They align perfectly. You got people that never went to college and they're geniuses in marketing, geniuses at promotion. But they lack the theoretical side of it. Doesn't mean they can't be successful, just means they'll hire somebody that has that. But I think there's a duality among all of us, that we should have the practical knowledge. We should also have the theoretical knowledge. And that's what makes you complete and whole. And then when you have the theoretical knowledge, you can converse with somebody who went to Harvard. They didn't go to school. I'm not going to say they didn't go to school. They didn't work in a grocery store like you did. They didn't see the things that you got exposed to. They didn't see the salesmanship that you have to use when you meet people. That's an invaluable experience. You can't even pay for that. So you have to have practical knowledge. You also have to have academic knowledge. Both of them are good. One is not better than the other. You can be successful without academic knowledge, but you really can't be successful without practical knowledge. That's the difference.
You're preaching to the choir, Doctor. Dr. Miles. So yeah, I think that's some very practical advice. But when you think about your younger self, often they wouldn't listen to you, no matter if you put it in black and white in front of them. So hopefully this does resonate with some folks. So I just want to remind folks that we were discussing how to get by Dr. D. Anthony Miles. And I'd suggest that all of you who are interested in really improving your marketing skills, go and take a look at that book. Now, talking about that, where could they get this book?
The book is available on Amazon and major book retailers. It's also, you may be able to find a book at the airports. And the book is probably my best-selling book. And it really resonated with people. And I really, really, really did not expect the response that I got to the book. The book is 500 pages. I painstakingly go through each section. The book, I give a background on the history of forensic accounting and forensic economics. Then I give a whole chapter on the background of forensic marketing, how forensic marketing takes from both of those predecessors, forensic accounting and forensic economics. And I say how forensic marketing is different. Forensic marketing doesn't investigate fraud, doesn't investigate damage. Forensic marketing investigates the gaps between the performance of success and failure with your marketing campaign or your products or your services. And that's the beauty of my book. It gives a sobering reality of what you need to look at. What are some of the things that you need to pay attention to while your product is failing? Where is your market position, what it is? Why your distribution channels are not as strong as they should, your pull strategy, your push strategy. And I took the whole aspect of marketing and put it in 5 categories of what you need to pay attention to when you're doing a forensic investigation. And I throw a little bit of suspense in there. You call the people at the marketing, you call it the crime scene. What I'll break it down to something like that. But it's a very good book. It's very technical, and people that are business majors, people that are curious about the field of marketing will not be disappointed.
I'll put a link in the description of where folks can buy the book. And if there's a website for you as well, or where folks can get in touch with you, I'll stick that in there as well.
Absolutely. You can share my email, dmiles@MDI and I would love to. If people have any questions about my work, about my book. My book has been well received by both academics and professionals. Probably more professionals, but it's a really good book.
Awesome. Well, Dr. Miles, it's been an absolute treat chatting with you. And
Absolutely.
I think we've got some good points out to the listeners. And I'm sure if they follow some of your advice, they will have a much more fulfilling life.
Nicholas, thank you so much for having me. I enjoyed it so much. Thank you for allowing me to talk about my book. Thank you so much.
Now, before we wrap up, don't forget to show some love for From Startup to Wunderbrand by subscribing on your favorite podcast platform. If you'd like to help us grow, tell your friends, share on social media, and leave us a review. For those of you who want to dive a little bit deeper into the topic, join me on Twitter @Nick Kuhner. Let's connect and chat about all things branding and digital. Until next time,